Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And yes, happy Sunday. And by the way, tonight we are going to join the conversation of Pax Silica. I am sure that you maybe heard Pax Silica either in the news or seeing in it on your Facebook feed. So let's have a conversation and give it a thought about Pax Silica. At the beginning, I didn't really pay much attention about it, but as I noticed, it's becoming a serious conversation in social media. So yeah, let's join this conversation, okay? Now I heard about Pax Silica a couple of months ago in Bloomberg when I was monitoring the earnings of the US. And then the guests on Bloomberg are saying that there's so many BPO in the Philippines doing a remote job, so they're discussing about the earnings. And then suddenly they are following it up about this Pax Silica project that the US government are considering to establish in the Philippines. Now, what is Pax Silica? And according to Group, Pax Silica is a US strategic initiative designed to strengthen the industry expected to power the next generation of the global economy. So it seems like they already decided what is the next generation that will, lead to the global economy. And this is what they so-called artificial intelligence, semiconductor, critical minerals, energy, manufacturing, supply chain, and digital infrastructure. And this was launched, by the way, by the US Department of State last year, 2025. And just to be clear, this Pax Silica is not owned by Nvidia, not owned by Microsoft, or even Apple. It is a US government initiative working together with the partners of other countries. Now, what really caught my attention is if you're gonna take a look of who are the countries involved in this project. Of course, the United States of America is taking the lead. Japan, we all know Japan, how sophisticated they are. South Korea, of course, Samsung. Australia, of course, Australia. They're going to give the critical minerals because I think last year or either this year, the China has stopped sending or exporting critical minerals to the USA. Now, the Singapore is joining, United Kingdom is joining, Israel is joining, UAE, of course, they are one of the biggest source of power and investment. They have so much money to invest, and of course, India is going to join. Qatar, Finland, Sweden, and of course, our country, Philippines, is being invited. Okay, we're invited. At first, it didn't make sense to me. These countries are all different economies, different strength. But I'm just wondering, why are they all sitting on the same table? This is where my analysis starting to fire. In my opinion, after reading and doing a research and connecting these different dots, the more I think and listen to the current events, Pax Silica is becoming the first AI trade block. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with a trade block. So what is a trade block? A trade block is a group of companies that makes an agreement to reduce or eliminate barriers of trading with each other. So basically they are building a supply chain. Not by oil, not by cars, but in terms of artificial intelligence, semiconductor, energy, critical mineral, and that's it. That is the Pax Silica is going to produce. Okay, did you digest? Okay, now let's continue. So, where does the Philippines fit? And you're probably, of course, Philippines will gonna do labor. I disagree. I think our biggest advantage is our geography. If we look at the map, we are located between Taiwan and Japan, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific Ocean. And that makes the Philippines very, very valuable, you know, because internet has to use undersea internet cables. It's becoming original logistics, and of course, cloud infrastructure, AI infrastructure. For the very first time, the world may not be looking at the Philippines not only a country that export workers, but also a strategic partner. Yeah, they are starting to look at us now as a strategic partner. Does it mean we were going to become the next Singapore? I don't think so, by the way. As I mentioned, we are just invited. It does not guarantee a success. It does not guarantee that we are all going to success with all this project. It simply gives us an opportunity. And what happened next? That would be depends on how we're going to execute this project. But here's what the story makes really, really interesting. So I like to do scavenging game, guys. And to understand Pax Silica, let's go to Strait of Hormuz. Now you probably think, okay, Strait of Hormuz, oh, this place is so famous for the past 4 months. You know why? Because this is the reason why our oil, electricity, and everything's go shoot up with the high price at the moment, and even weakening our Philippine peso. Now, you're probably wondering why Strait of Hormuz. Well, let's begin first, to understand why America is investing heavily in artificial intelligence. So, why does suddenly America are so heavily invested with AI? Not 2 years ago, not 5 years ago. Well, let me break it down with you guys. It's their economy. If you follow the S&P 500, over the past few years, like over the past 3 years, a huge part of its growth came from only a handful companies. It came from Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia, Amazon, Google, Meta. Now think about this magnificent six stocks. Together, they're all technology. So, these companies, they're investing hundreds of billions into artificial intelligence. They are building datas, buying more chips, expanding cloud infrastructure, and making one of the biggest technology bet in modern history. Now let me ask you something. What if their bet is right? And the Philippines is invited, but we haven't made any decision yet. So yeah, hold that thought. So Jim Rohn said, if you're not willing to risk the unusual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. And America could enter another technology boom. And what if they're wrong? What if their bets go down? If AI fails to deliver the value investor expected, those investment becomes much harder to justify. And I think America is trying to make sure that AI becomes a real industry, not just another stocks to make a story. Did that sink into your head? Now let's go one step deeper. When you heard artificial intelligence, you probably say, oh, ChatGPT. Of course, you're using ChatGPT's robot, self-driving car, Tesla. But AI is bigger than that. AI isn't just a software. AI, by the way, need a physical body. So every AI conversion, every AI image, or every video that you make using AI, all of this required an electricity. And without electricity, AI does not even exist. And where does the electricity came from? It doesn't generally came out from the wall. It has to be generated. And generating electricity requires energy. Boom. There you go. So electricity powers data center. Data center powers GPU. GPU runs AI. And AI become the tool we use every day. And suddenly, AI seems like not a software anymore. It looks like an infrastructure. Now, let's connect it to the Strait of Hormuz. Here is a simple way to think about it. If the AI is the brain, energy is the blood of this physical body that they're going to create. And Strait of Hormuz is one of the world important arteries. A large share of the world oil and liquefied natural gases passes through these narrow waterways. And if you may think, so what's the connection? Electricity doesn't travel through Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, that's right. Electricity doesn't travel through Strait of Hormuz, but fuel does. And if fuel becomes expensive, electricity becomes expensive. And if electricity becomes more expensive, then running AI is more even expensive. And just like today, we are suffering all the prices that goes up because of the war in Strait of Hormuz. And now, I'm not sure if you start connecting the dots, but everything is connected. America wants to build an AI. AI needs enormous amount of energy. And now let's start connecting the dots. America wants to build the future AI. AI needs an enormous energy. Electricity needs a reliable energy. Energy depends on the supply global chain. And that's exactly why geography, partners, and infrastructures suddenly become so important. So where does the Philippines fit into that picture? And this story is very personal to me because we're not talking about America anymore. We're talking about our future, the future of the upcoming generation in the Philippines. So, why the Philippines was invited and why this could change everything. Alright, I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm only asking you to think with me. Now that we understand why America is investing so heavily in AI, I know that every Filipino dreams that one day our country will finally make it. We always have this conversation with our friends that, oh, I wish we were going to be a Singapore. Oh, I wish we were going to be similar to Japan. Oh, how I wish we're going to be similar to Taiwan. Well, we have to ask ourselves, why can't the Philippines become like them? And I guess the reality, is that in every opportunity what comes with risk. And the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all. In a world that's changing really quickly, the only strategy that guaranteed to fail is not taking the risk. And in my mind, I think this is the opportunity where the risk is still there, but the long-term reward could potentially change our country. Now, I'm not saying Pax Silica will definitely do that. Nobody knows the future. And of course, we can always map out the worst scenario. But I think this one opportunity worth understanding before we even decide whether we support it or not. And let's finally ask the question that probably matter most of us. Why the Philippines? As I mentioned before, our location start making sense. Now, imagine the chain. United States developed AI. AI needs massive computing power. Data center needs electricity. Electricity needs reliable infrastructure. And also, it needs an undersea internet cable because information has to travel across the world. Now look at the Philippines again. We're right in the middle of one of the busiest digital and shipping region on earth. That doesn't make us rich automatically, by the way, but it does make us the strategic partner, a very important partner. And let's be factual, okay? Many Filipino things are biggest expert in labor. And yeah, that is true. I'm not gonna deny that. Many Filipinos work overseas, nurses, engineers, seafarers, domestic workers. Tons of Filipino. We help to build other countries. Did you get that? We help to build other countries. But my question is, what if one day other countries start building here in the Philippines? Imagine your worker are the foreigners that you used to work overseas before. Wouldn't that change the conversation? Now, let's be realistic. I know Philippines has many problems. Corruption is one of the biggest problems. Permits, flooding, high electricity costs, traffic, weak infrastructure. And these are all reals. And if you think about it, sometimes I do think about it and I'm like, do we still have a hope? And I'm like, we need to find a way how we can solve this problem. And in fact, those are probably the reason why any investor don't want to invest here in the Philippines. But here's something I also don't want us to forget. Countries like Japan, South Korea, Taiwan doesn't become successful because they start very perfect. They become successful because they improve. Singapore wasn't built in one election, by the way. If you look at their history, South Korea did not become an industrial powerhouse by one deal and one agreement or overnight. Taiwan didn't wake up one morning and become suddenly the world semiconductor leader. This country invested. These countries invested, learned, improve, make mistake, learn, improve, and keep going. This is where my opinion began, and I think many Filipinos are looking at Pax Silica in a wrong way, and I totally understand it. Most people are thinking and asking, how much money will America invest? I think that's a wrong question. The better question is, what knowledge will Filipino gain? Because we all know money can disappear, building can become old, Government can change, but knowledge stay with people. And imagine a 22-year-old Filipino. He's been hired in Pax Silica, a very advanced semiconductor facility. First day, he knows almost nothing. Very nervous. He's asking questions. He's making mistakes. 5 years later, he understands the machine. 10 years later, he understands why the machine were designed that way. 15 years later, he started asking a very different question. Why are we importing this machine? Why can't we manufacture this locally? Why are we paying another country to solve this problem? Now, I know not everybody will do the same thing. Some people will stop there. They'll continue just working just to make money. That's perfectly okay. But I know some people won't also. A very few people will become curious, and curiosity change everything. Maybe one Filipino starts something, a maintenance company, another build an industrial software, someone creates, and then another one will create a cooling system for data centers. Probably with the young generation that we have right now, probably another develops AI for agriculture. Another build robotics for warehouses. Maybe someone will create a cybersecurity software. And maybe one becomes the first Filipino company supplying a global semiconductor manufacturing. Do you see what I'm trying to say? I think a lot of people forget that innovation doesn't always begin with investing something completely new. Sometimes innovation begins by solving problems that you see every day. Now let's say about the numbers. Now let's think about the numbers. So the project has been talked about creating 130,000 jobs over time. Let's assume that will happen. Do all 130,000 becomes entrepreneur? I don't think so. Maybe 1,000 become highly skilled. Maybe 300 seriously think about doing something about it. Like maybe 100 workers were finally starting to think that they want to start their own company. Maybe with this 100, 10 will survive, and then two becomes the supplier, and maybe, just maybe, maybe one becomes a globally respected Filipino technology company. Some people say, no, only one? Yeah, only one. Because one company can change history. Samsung changed Korea. Samsung changed South Korea. TSMC changed Taiwan. Every giant company today started as someone crazy idea. Now imagine if you don't take this opportunity. No factories, no exposure, no engineering learning, no ecosystem. Then what does the future entrepreneur learn? Maybe they will leave the country. Maybe they will never gonna go pursue the Pax Silica here in the Philippines. And you know what? Maybe they will gonna do it in Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia. Now imagine if we never get this opportunity. No advanced factories, no exposure, no foreign companies. What does the future entrepreneur here in the Philippines learn? Maybe they will go leave to another country again to become an overseas worker. Maybe they'll never gonna discover their talent. So, yeah, maybe that company is built somewhere else. This is why I keep saying to even my friends and to my family that exposure change imagination, and that's why a lot of people want to travel abroad and learn something new because they are being exposed to something different that most of the Filipino will never experience. And we all know that imagination create ambition. Now, I'm not saying Pax Silica guarantee any of this. Please do not misunderstand me. Nothing is guaranteed. The project could succeed, the project could fail, but here's something that I'm very confident about. If Filipinos will never get exposed to advanced industry, our chances of building world-class technology companies become much smaller because it's very difficult to dream about something you never seen. And what happens if we say no? Well, nothing happens if we say no. The world will not gonna stop. The investment will simply move to another country. There's no emotional there. They're just gonna go to probably Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, and that's just how it is. And I don't want to be mean or, make our country feel inferior, but just to understand. So, this Pax Silica, this is a competition. And really, what's really scares me is complacency. Country doesn't become poor overnight. They slowly convince themselves we'll do it later. History doesn't wait, guys. Capital doesn't wait. And especially technology doesn't wait. The worlds keep moving. That's how they are. And if they don't want to join, I think we're just gonna stay here. If we miss this opportunity, then I guess we miss it. Imagine the younger generation will never see robotics. They'll never gonna see semiconductor factories, AI engineers. He never dreams about becoming one because children cannot dream about the job that they never seen. Probably say, oh my God, Charissa, do you know how much the data center will consume water? It's not just a million of gallons. It uses more than a million of gallons every day. And we already have a water problem here in the Philippines. Why would we even allow it? And I would say that's a very good question. And I think it's the right question. Because if we ignore the environmental concerns, then we already failed. But can I ask you another question? Who says there is only one way to solve a problem? Whenever Filipino hears a problem, most of us immediately think, oh my God, it's so impossible, we're a corrupt countries. But rich countries asked a very different question. They always asked how we're going to solve it. We always want to be the next Singapore. And take a look at Singapore. Singapore does not have any abundant water. And yet today, they're one of the most advanced country when it comes to water management. They basically invested in recycling water, rainfall collections, reservoir, desalination, technology, planning. Singapore did not become successful because it has more water than everyone else. It becomes successful because it managed the water better. Now, let me ask you a question. The Philippines is one of the rainiest country in the world. Every year, we complain about flood. We complain about the rain water goes to waste. Why can't we start asking a very different question? Instead of saying data center use too much water, why not ask how do we harvest those rainwater better? How do we inform our reservoir? How do we recycle our industrial water? How do we encourage green technology? I'm not saying that this all going to go well, but the thing is, the government can always make a policy. Maybe Congress could strengthen laws that encourage sustainable industries' water use. Maybe local government could require water rain harvesting. They can always partnership with any investor locally. Maybe encourage some investor to build facility to recycle the water waste also. And around the world, there are so many companies that already invested in the so-called ESG, the environmental, social, and governance standard. Economic growth shouldn't be ignored environment, especially here in the Philippines, because that's what the most Filipino worries are, the water, the water. But we can build a method and a process to solve this problem, to make our life improve. I hope you see the difference. One mindset says we have a problem, the other mindset says, can we build a solution? I think this is one of the biggest differences between poor countries and rich countries. Poor countries often stop identifying the problems, and successful countries are always asking who's going to solve them. Maybe our biggest resource isn't our nickel, our copper, or even water. Maybe it's the Filipino ability to learn how to solve the problem that we never solved before. One day, maybe 10 years from now, or maybe 20 years from now, a Filipino child will all walk into an AI factory, and then, maybe they won't be a janitor. They won't be the security guard of those AI facilities. They won't even be the employee. Maybe they are the founder of this AI. Well, if you still decided that Pax Silica shouldn't be established here in the Philippines, we can totally respect that. But if you could see the other side, then we can always build a very slow process and method to make it sure that everything are going to go in the right direction. So I think voting in next election is very, very important. Now we know our weakest point, corruptions, so many projects of infrastructure that has never been happened. And I guess it's time for the policymaker to start there. This project could be a really win-win situation if we're going to do it in the right way. No shortcut, please don't do that. And maybe one day we're gonna be ahead, or maybe we can catch up to those countries that we wanted to be like. Alright guys, it's been so long, and I hope I did share you my wisdom. Have a good day. Bye.